Hello. Good evening. Hello. Good evening. How are we all doing today? Good evening. Let me see who is online. Hey, Echo, how are you? Good evening, sis. Thank you for coming in here tonight. I feel so good. Oh, you've made my evening. Good evening, sis. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me show my face a bit. All right. Good evening. I'm honored to be here tonight. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming out tonight to listen to me. How's been your day? All right. How's been your day? Today has been one of those days that like I've been on from the beginning of the day, even up till this moment and all. It's been a full day, but we give God the glory that we even have what to do to keep us busy. You're welcome to this the day 2 of the Sex Ed for Girls webinar here in the group. I'm excited to be here. Yesterday was exciting. If you weren't able to join us live, you can catch the replay on the group, and it will make a huge difference for you. What did I talk about yesterday? I talked about how we can educate the whole family. You know, in today's world, we're all tempted to just focus on our kids alone. We're tempted to, in many cases, just focus on our kids alone when it comes to sex education, because our orientation is that is our kids we're trying to protect from abuse. But what we don't realize is that if we educate everyone in our homes, our kids are better for it. If we educate our relatives who come to live with us, we're all better for it. All right. I talked about a personal experience where I had someone in my house with a totally different value system from us, and how it was an opportunity to shape that person, because the better the person becomes, the better the quality of influence they bring into my children's lives. All right. So if you're a parent and you think that your business is with only your kids, you have to think again, because if human beings are ever going to stay with your kids, then you have to educate everyone. Until Toyogun Komi, you know you're my darling. Thank you for coming in. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. I've had a full day. Today is one of those days, right? Where from the beginning of the day, you just get going till this evening. All right, so sorry, love. My goal is for us to deal with sex education myths, that some of it are things that our parents passed on to us. Some are things that we just picked along the way. Some are things that our friends have passed on to us out of different fears and all. I just wanted us to address this. But usually in this series, before I start, I usually like to clarify why we're doing sex education for girls. Sex education for girls is peculiar. Sex education is different for girls, and is different for boys. All right. Sex education is different for both gender. The principles are the same. Principles of purity apply for boys as it applies for girls. Principles around self-worth applies for boys as it applies for girls. But when it comes to sex decisions, boys make sex decisions for a different reason from girls. So in doing sex education for girls, it's important to know the perspective to go with. It's important to know the perspective to go with. I always like to use this example. Boys have sex with girls as a power tussle. They want to prove to their friends that they can sleep with a girl, they can convince a girl to sleep with them, and they can to time on girls, they can sleep with many girls. In fact, I've watched a video where a young boy was saying they kind of take pills to see how many rounds they can go with a girl or how many girls they can sleep with in a day. So they have a validation problem that shows itself in that manner. Whereas girls, are having sex for attention. They want validation. They want the boy to love them. Can you see where there's a mix match? The boy is playing a game. The girl is looking for commitment. It starts from the get-go. So the girl wants to be the one the boy picked in school over other teenage girls. The girl wants to sleep with him so that I can make him stay. I can do things to him that will keep him. So they both have a self-worth problem, but they're playing it out in different ways. So that means if you have a son and a daughter, it is important for you to make sure that the sex education is not generic. You're speaking to the boy as you're speaking to the girl. There are times when you're talking principle blanket, but when it's time to narrow deep into the deeper issues of sex education choices, you have to recognize that sex ed for girls is different from sex ed for boys. All right? No generic conversations and all. And so on and so forth. So having said that, my specialty is in raising girls. I've been doing this for a really long time. You know, sometimes you do some things for so long and you don't even realize that that's it, right? I remember living when I was in Jos. I had a group of teenage girls and young adults. Some of them are married now. Some of them are in this group now that I was mentoring. And I called the group Greens Connect. It was faith-based, but I was so passionate about those girls, and some of them are mothers now. Some of them are doctors. They live in different parts of the world. Some are still in Jos. I mean, everyone, they grew up essentially. I met most of them 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. So this year is a defining year for my work, and I'm narrowing into girls alone because I know that everyone has an audience they're called to. So Irene Bangwell is called at this time to support families raise girls that are empowered. And what's an empowered girl? A girl that is not limited, all right? It's not broken by, we're not exposing our girls to things that do something to their mental health. We're not exposing them to abuse. We're not also exposing them or limiting them by stereotypes. That's why I always throw that question that what are you raising your girls for? Are you raising your girls for men? And I've had the controversy where people feel like, oh, this is feminist. You don't want our girl. You're trying to demonize men. And I said, you're not serious. What I'm saying is don't make boys the goalpost for your children's lives. If boys are the goalpost for your daughters, they're going to have sex early because it's an achievement when a boy looks their way. Because mommy and daddy have been saying it from the day they were born that, oh, clean your room so that you get married, cook so that you get married. So this is part of the socialization that plays out when our girls are making sex education choices. So I'm here to support you as your raising girls coach. You want to raise a resilient, wholesome, independent, resourceful, determined girl. A girl who knows her worth and doesn't seek validation anywhere else. I'm the person to call, all right? And this is talking a lot about sex education. So let me fire away and let's start today. I'm addressing myth on sex education, and I'm just going to start with the first one right away. I want to use this opportunity to thank everyone who came out tonight to be a part of this live video. I don't take you for granted. Your time is important. So coming out to watch and listen and even consider learning from me is something I honor a lot. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. All right. So why are we starting? All right. So yes, this is Irene. I'm talking about raising girls. So our topic for today is addressing. Okay, why is this not working? Addressing myths about sex education, okay? So let me see, what's our first myth? The first myth that even our parents passed down to us was that sex education will spoil children. You've heard that before. Some parents find it difficult to talk to their kids because they think that I'm going to spoil my child. How do I address this myth? Number one, sex education is totally different from intercourse education, because that's where your fear is. Your fear is that you're going to be talking about penis and vagina. Well, I don't even get to talk up to my kids about penis and vagina until they're about 9, 10, unless we are exposed to a circumstance that I need to come in. And I'm going to explain what that even means in a bit. It means that sex education is not all about penis and vagina. It means that sex education is not intercourse. It's not talking about how to have sex. So one of the things I want to get out of the way is that, number one, sex education is about preparing a child to make informed sex-based decisions. Sex education is about preparing a child to make an informed decision when it comes to sex. All right. So where does it start? From when they're really young. It starts with, I always start with dignity. The foundation for sex education for me is self-worth, helping a person know that they're important, they're valuable, and so they were made in the image, and my kids know that they were made in the image and likeness of God, and they carry the Holy Spirit on their inside. And because the Holy Spirit is inside of them, there's a way they should portray themselves, there's a way they should speak, there's a way. So it doesn't even start with sex. So I start with an identity. I give my girls an identity that is anchored in Christ. Now, at what age am I giving them an identity that is anchored in Christ? They are 1 to 5 when we start laying this down. And that's because I want it to be so entrenched that by the time they are teenagers, the only identity that they know or they have of themselves is who they are in Christ. Because by the time they are teenagers, when someone says, I don't like you, the other girl is more this than you, the other girl has more hips than you, there's some sort of buffer. Will it affect them a little bit? Maybe a teeny bit, all right? But deep down, it will not affect their sense of person. All right? It will not affect their sense of person, okay? Do you get my point? So I'm starting that early to lay the foundations of dignity that they will need to make sex decisions in the future. Then I move up a little bit higher. I start talking to them about their body. First, I talk to them about self-respect, which is, this is my body, that is her body. I cannot put my hand on her body, right? I cannot put my hand on her body, and so she should not put her hand on my body. Right? I start talking about things like consent, and they start with little things. Take permission before you use people's stuff. I mean, you won't even think that's sex education, but those are the values with which sex education thrives. Then you now name the body parts. This is a vagina, this is a penis. And many parents, when they hear this, they say, hey, I'm saying it's your adult mindset that makes you think that calling it vagina is a problem. It's just your mindset as an adult. It's because of what you do with it that makes you feel that way. As far as your children know, they wee with it. So what is it called? What do you call your teeth? Teeth, mouth, vagina, penis. It's not, see, we need to disabuse the minds of kids. And it starts with you, parent, knowing that it starts with you making a mental adjustment about some of the things that you're cringing about, to know that, oh, it's from your own perspective. So I'm a teacher. I run a school, right? One of the things that we thought to do with our girls in the school was to make sure that when we talk sex education, our children are not tickled. When we started that school last September, we said in the nurse school, whenever we talk about sex education, our kids should not be tickled. There's nothing to be tickled about, because they have informed information. They are informed about sex. What are they giggling for? Do they giggle when we say brush your teeth? So why are you giggling when we talk about vagina and penis? So what happens is we demystify these conversations. I'm even going ahead of myself. So we are starting so early, so we demystify it. We demystify the whole penis and vagina drama. We make it a natural part of life. So I move from when my children are saying, this is my body, the boundaries with other people's body. Then I move to the part where it's now about hygiene. Because around 6, 7, 8, we're beginning to prepare them for some level of independence. By that time, they're supposed to start bathing themselves under our supervision. But by the time they start hitting 8, I said it here last year, many of you will notice that your children get to a certain age and they start having odor. When they sweat, it smells differently. At that point, puberty is peaking. Puberty has begun. So you start talking to them. So for instance, last day when I started talking to my baby, I said, you have to bathe twice a day. You have to use your deodorant. I said, your body's changing. And here's the thing. Your body's changing because you remember you were once a toddler, preschooler, whatever they call you by the time you're 6 to 8. That life continues to change for you at different times. Like now, one day you're going to be as big as mom. And part of it is your body is going to make changes as you grow older. So one of the changes is called puberty. So your body is producing hormones. Those hormones will make you sweat a little bit more. So much is going on. And before you know it, one blood is going to come out. I took my daughter last year to ShopRite to pick a pack of pad. And that was my own sex ed too, because it has to be fun, it has to be exciting, and it has to be informative, quality information. And when we got home that day, I told her that when you start seeing your period, that's your superpower as a woman. Because right from the beginning, I don't want them to be shamed about sex. There's a part of sex education for girls that shames girls in the process. So I told her, seeing your period is superpower. That's how your body tells you you're ready to have a baby. Then I added another line. I said, your body can be ready to have a baby, but you can say, I am not ready to have a baby. What am I doing? I'm preparing my child for those seasons when peers will be all over their head saying things. I want them to make, remember what I said at the beginning, informed decisions. So sex education does not spoil children. Sex education enables children make informed sex-based decisions. When a friend says, oh, let's go have sex, your breast and your hips will be bigger, I want my daughter to say, excuse me, I understand the sexual part of it. How does what happens at your vagina and in your penis lead to breast enlargement? I want my kids to be able to think like that. For them to just expect that, I have to build it as a culture. I have to build things into my home. There are some things that I do in my home to prepare my children for different decisions they will make in the course of their lives. And sex education is one of those decisions. So sex education does not spoil children, because you don't start out talking about sex. I talked about the danger of having a home that is too liberal about sex yesterday. You should catch the replay. I talked about that yesterday. So this myth that sex education will spoil children is a myth. So if you're a parent, you don't know what to say to your children, you should get help. Learn what to say to your children. Send me a DM if you need help figuring out what to say to your children. What are their ages? How should I say it? Talk to me about it. So get informed so that you provide quality information at each point in time, instead of just saying sex education will spoil children. All right. So what's the next myth I want to address today? The next myth I want to address today is that there's a thing that if your child is doing something wrong, it is a sign that you're irresponsible. So let me break it down, what that means. All right. So you're at work and the school calls you and says they met your son in the toilet or your daughter in the toilet with someone of the opposite sex making out. And the first thing that comes to your face is, oh, this child has shamed me. It's not always about you. It's not about you. It's not always about you. But there's something that is happening in that place. You're getting feedback. You're getting feedback that your child is not making an informed decision. When that kind of thing happens, your priority is to find out, what was my child's thought process before they made the decision to make out in school or anywhere else? Why did my child not see anything wrong with this act? What did this person say to convince my child? What are my daughter's values or my son's values? So it means that when something goes wrong, take it as feedback. Once you start telling yourself you're irresponsible, oh, the child has shamed me, there's a tendency that you will not maximize that moment. A smart parent knows that, oh, it means that my child doesn't know enough in this regard. It's time to teach. And even if you think you've been teaching your child, with all what I've told you, many of us say that, with all what I've told you, you still did this. It means that with all what you've told your child, it's either they don't understand or you've said it the wrong way. I know many parents who argue about sex education. Sex education is not supposed to be something you people argue about. It's supposed to be something you people talk about. You banter about it. This one shares their perspective, that one shares their perspective, and everybody comes to a meeting ground. When you wake up and tell your children that, oh, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, I will kill you, that is not sex education. All right? Some of you say, if I catch you, I will kill you. Well, the world is showing your children how to do it in such a way that you don't catch them. What am I saying in essence? I'm saying that if your child does something wrong, it is feedback. It is feedback Forget about all the idea that you're irresponsible, you failed, all the things I've told. Sometimes even when you're telling people, do you know what I've taught this child? Do you know what I've told this child? That is you trying to save face. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. If anybody judges you because your child has a setback, that's that person's problem. Stop trying to save face. You don't need to call the whole world to come and see what this child has done to you. Simply take your baby, because your child will always be your baby. Take your baby home and say, baby, what happened? So let me tell you how I'm preparing for this kind of conversations. In my home, every single time something goes wrong, I ask my daughters, what were you thinking? And it's not a disrespect. So I started out so early, so it's not a disrespectful question in my home. So let me give you a scenario. My daughter does something, maybe I told her to do something and her countenance changes. I'll call and say, baby, what's on your mind? And she would say something like, well, I just have this thought that since today, you've been scolding me a lot. You've been telling me that what I did is wrong. You've been telling me to change this and correct this and correct that and correct that. And I'm just thinking that it's too much. Once they can tell you what is in their head, you have started parenting. So when she said that, that day, I just looked at her and said, okay, let's go all over again. Is mommy really correcting you too much? Let's start from the beginning. What happened at first? What happened next? Why do you think mommy came up with this? And then by the time we're done with that conversation, I've replaced their wrong thinking with a more informed thinking. So let me give you gist. 2 nights ago, my daughter walks up to me and asked me, what do I do when I'm upset with you and daddy? Do you know that that's whatever answer I'm going to give her is preparing us for teenage years? As far as I'm concerned, the quality of relationship I'm building is preparing us for teenage years, right? So if your child is doing something wrong, it is a sign that you're getting feedback. It is simply feedback. Find out what the problem is, find out where the wrong thinking is, find out where the wrong belief is, work to help them address it, deal with their questions, answer them. Asking a child questions when there's misbehavior, questions that help you understand where they missed it, is far more valuable to you than saying that you're irresponsible. All right? That's myth number 2. Myth number 3, I've already addressed this somewhere. Some parents say they don't do sex talk because sex education conversations because they don't know what to say or how to say it. Get help. That's not enough. That's not an excuse. That's not admissible. With the number of kids that are being abused at home, or the number of kids that are having, while they are minors, they are not able to have consensual sex per se. They can't give consent, even if they're having sex with a minor as well. But there are many of our children, girls and boys, are having sex willingly. They're not being coerced. You want to take that kind of risk? Some of you keep hammering, don't get pregnant. So that's the only sex ed, don't get pregnant. That's a very smart rule. What you're saying is have sex, but don't get pregnant. And guess what? The world is waiting to show them how to do that. All right? The world is crazy. Google is waiting to show your children how to do that. All right? What's the next myth I want to deal with? The phase will pass. Many parents believe that the child will outgrow this phase. The phase that the body is doing them like this will pass. All right. I always like using stories. Okay, so when I was in primary school, had this classmate. I'm not sure she was my classmate or not. I don't know. But when we were in primary school, excuse me, I heard rumorsly that that girl was found in the toilet with a boy. But guess what how far the rumor went? The rumor went that the boy was living with a parent who was using porn. So he would wake up. Sometimes he would do as if he's sleeping when his parents are watching. Then he would take a sneak peek, and then come to school and try to experiment with it. We were in primary 3-ish, maybe 6, 7, 8 years maximum. Why did I say 8? Well, 6, 7. So fast forward to being in the university and seeing that young girl still as broken. I can imagine that when that incident happened in primary school, people shamed them instead of picking these kids up and teaching them what to do. So let me pause this at this moment and talk to teachers. If you're a teacher and you find children doing something they're not supposed to do, There's a reason that God put you in there. You're not supposed to be part of the shaming spree. Young people are doing the best they can with what they know. It doesn't matter what you think that you've told them. You think is that those things we do in assembly, that we gather 300 children under the sun in the morning and tell them about sex and values and bring speakers and stuff. If you really want to shape children's sexual principles, you create culture around it. You create school culture around it. All right? You create school culture. The conversation is ongoing. And if the conversation is one way, you're not communicating. If the young people are not giving you feedback, you're not doing sex education. So if you're an educator and you're listening to me right now, when you find young people caught in things they're not supposed to do, God placed you here to educate. For one, you know something that other people don't. So you have an authority, you have legitimacy to speak to them, not to shame them, not to take it to the staff room. It could have been your child. Young people are doing the best they can with what they know. Many of these young people are getting sex education from their peers. So think about it. What's the quality of information they're getting from each other? The next thing, they step it up, they go on Google. How safe are those places? So you walked into young people having sex in school. All you need to do is tell them, clean up, get up, and wait for me in my office. Nobody's supposed to know. Hold them accountable until they reshape. The love that you show to them, having caught them in the act, will empower them to make better choices another time. So why am I saying this? No child outgrows this thing. If you don't give your children sex education, they're going to get it somewhere else. And if they start experimenting, there are many adults living with the impact of decisions they made as young people. Half-baked decisions, poor decisions. That's why I said sex education is preparing your children to make informed sex decisions. So the children are not getting well educated, so they pick anything and go with it. They will not outgrow it. Rather, the impact of the choices they made out of ignorance will live with them. And I like being honest with us. You that is looking at me at the screen, if you experimented with sex as a young person, you know the scars that you live with today. You know people that when they like your post on Facebook, you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And even if you've healed completely, you know that if you had to do it again, you wouldn't walk that path. So there is no reason in the world that you should say you don't need to give sex education, the phase will pass. If the phase passes without quality knowledge, your children are going to do crazy things. They're going to do crazy things, and then they're going to live with the impact of the decisions they made today. And let me end by saying that sometimes the smallest impact is pregnancy. For those people that think that the height of shame is when your child comes home pregnant, no, they don't need to get pregnant. There's family planning all over the place. They don't need to get pregnant. They don't need to get pregnant, right? Some of them will get HIV. Some of them will have abortions until something goes wrong. And some of them will have abortions and nothing will go wrong, but their self-esteem will be tarnished. They will settle for men they have no business being with because they feel that they are not worthy of decent men. So your child will not outgrow it, all right? Somebody's asking a question about what I answered my daughter. I'm going to get back to you soon. I'm going to get back to that, all right? So what's the next myth I want to address tonight? So some people have this crazy belief that they do sex education for the firstborn and the firstborn cascades. It is true that many times children look up to their older siblings to get sex ed guidance. But when I started, I told you sex education is different for girls and it's different for boys. So what if you have a female as first? How does your female pass it on to the male? Also, your children have different temperament, different learning styles. Your children are different in different ways. Many parents here who have two daughters know the one that will easily talk to them about their boyfriend and the one who won't. When I say their boyfriend, I mean boys that they're interested in. So when they talk to their moms know how to, keep them grounded, help them see things in a different way and all of that. So because of how different our children are, this is a myth. You have to have sex education relationship with each of your children, together and individually. So a few weeks ago, I did this poll on Telegram, and it was really overwhelming. Most parents, maybe 90% of parents, said sex education is super important. But we had this, even if it was one dissenting voice saying sex education is not that important. I was shocked. In today's world where things are happening, where kids are being abused in different places. Yesterday, I talked about my story when I was 9 years old. On the day I was writing my state common entrance, a teacher in my school put his finger in my vagina. Sent for me. I came to his office because I was part of a team he was coordinating. So I thought it was in view of the rehearsal. He put his finger in my vagina that day. I told my mom about it 2 years ago. So when people listen to girls who say they were abused and they say, why didn't you speak up? I'm like, hold it. Have you been there? Because when that happens, the girl feels like she's broken, she's damaged, she's ashamed. Society has not taught her that it's the person who did it that is damaged. So she lives with the shame that something is wrong with her. And let me tell you, you should be embarrassed at how many people on social media say they've been abused. You should be shocked. It should make you go home, gather your children, hug them, and say, I've got your back. We should be ashamed. Everywhere you turn, you're talking to 5 women, 4 possibly have been abused. Can you imagine? In fact, the one that even hit me was that it didn't even occur to me that what that man did was abuse until one day I was in a particular workshop and someone said abuse is not only when penis goes in. No. Abuse is when somebody violates your person. I think I was going through a learning to teach my children about private body parts where people shouldn't touch. Then it hit me that what happened that time? I called my mom and told her. Right? What am I saying? You should be worried at the spate of sexual abuse. Relatives abusing their nieces, their nephews, we should be worried. So that's why I don't expect any parent in this generation to say sex education is not that important. Our parents could have done the best they could. Today there's information. There's Irene, for example, willing to teach you how to talk to your kids about sex so that you don't have the excuse of not knowing what to say. So you can't sit on the fence and say, well, sex education is not that important. Yesterday, I talked about the danger of indifference. So you can watch the live video or check my YouTube channel. I'll put up that video on my YouTube channel in a few days. All right. So what's the next myth here? The African parent that knows the child in and out says, my child can't do that. And I used to say, who says that? If you look me in the face and say, look, Irene, I have a rapport with my kids. We've talked a lot about this. I know what they believe. I know the limitations. I know where we differ. But on an average day, I know what my child can do. I would say yes. But if you're not doing that quality sex ed and you say, I have won my child, I go kill him. I'm like, you're kidding, right? Because when you were young, how many of your parents' threats stopped you from doing the things you wanted to do? You knew how to do them and come home as if nothing happened. So why would you think that your child can't do that? What you should tell me is that my child is equipped to be able to make quality, all right? They'll be able to make quality information as young people. That's what I want to hear. My child will be able to make quality information. But can't do that when you've not done a good job. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. Your child can do anything. But you can say, I'm going to arm this child. I'm going to build relationship. I'm going to make sure they're getting, I'm the source of information. I keep saying this, that you're supposed to be your children's sex information bank. That doesn't mean that you overload them. It means that you're the go-to place to get information about sex. Let something come up. Let things happen in school. And your kids say, when I get home, I'm going to talk to mom about this. When I get home, I'm going to talk to daddy about this. All right. Like my daughter writes down things they say in school to come and tell me. And some of them are ridiculous. You'll be wondering, how could someone sit by an 8-year-old to be saying that? All right. You know, that kind of thing. So don't say that your child can't do that. All right. Instead, arm your child with relationship, worth, and quality information. Did you hear what I said? Arm your children with relationship, worth, self-worth, and quality information. All right. And then what's the final myth I've dealt with that I have won my child? So what's the biggest risk? If you don't do sex education for your children, someone else will. And let me give you a rundown, the kind of someones who can do the sex education for you. Fortunately for us, sometimes if our children are part of a teens church system, a leadership club, a training they go to, that might be a good place to get quality information. But if you're not even intentional about anything, let me show you a rundown of some of the someones who could be doing sex education for you. Someone as your relative, a relative who has very poor self-value, who is immoral, can model a different mindset to your kids. A relative once told me, I was trying to get a job somewhere, and the person told me to, so at the job, when the job offer came, okay, there was no job offer. I was in Lagos. Somebody gave me a parcel to deliver to someone in Calabar at the time. So when I went to deliver to this guy, I discovered he works in a court, and the court was, they were building a permanent site, and they were trying to recruit people. So I asked him if I could come for employment. Since that I had done him a favor, I thought, oh, young man was going to be excited, give me the opportunity to get this job and all. To my shock, he said, he wasn't even a young man. He was like old enough to be my father and all of that kind of stuff. The man said, well, he needs to sleep with me, that when he sleeps with me, he'll get me this job. So as I was hurting, I went to speak to a relative about it. And she asked me that, what is the big deal? That would this man remove my vagina and go with it? That I should just make sure he's in a position to give me this job. And I should just finish, rinse my body and walk out. I told her that I would rather let the job go. All right? So those are the kind of someones that can be talking to your children. Another someone that can be doing sex education to your children in your absence is an ignorant peer, right? A peer who is also struggling through life, who pick vibes and values from the wrong sources, because they probably are not talking to their parents either. All right, so they mix their wrong information, they build theories around it, they make decisions around it, then they make poorly informed choices in the process. Remember, I'm saying that sex education is arming children with the knowledge so that they can make informed decisions when it comes to sex. All right. Finally, another someone who can educate your child is a social worker. So fortunately for all of us, I also happen to be a social worker. So what that means is that if I was on a project with an NGO and we're going to schools, many times abstinence is not on the table. The blueprint for social workers is to prevent pregnancies, right? That's priority, to prevent pregnancies. There's no morality. It's just about preventing pregnancies, because it's kind of a social issue when we have high rate of teenage pregnancies. So social workers want to stop teenage pregnancy. They're not trying to stop sex, trying to stop teenage pregnancy. So if you're depending on the social workers that go around schools to talk to them, I want you to know that there's no abstinence on the table per se. Well, they're going to tell you the A, B, C and all of that. And yes, abstinence is A, but every tool that is brought into that building is not to teach a child how to avoid. Many times it's to arm them with the knowledge and the skill on how to have sex without getting pregnant. That's what happens when mommy and daddy are not the ones talking. So a friend of mine reached out to me a few weeks ago, not weeks, so like months ago, maybe sometime last year. So her foster kid is in a government school, and social workers came, and these kids are in JSS3. You'll be shocked. I don't know what organization would do that. All right. So they went into that school, and they told the girls that they understand that many of them that are like maids, they're here to fend for their families, and sometimes the need to fend for their families can lead to prostitution or lead to sleeping with men to put some money together to care for family. So they came here to hand them out condoms, to make sure that they're using condoms so that they can reduce incidences of HIV and incidences of teenage pregnancies. And so she calls me, she's livid, she's all of this. And I smiled and said, the sole goal of public health, to an extent, is looking for the issues that arise from the choices people make. And when it comes to premarital sex, the real issues arising in the perspective of public health is pregnancies and HIV. So when they design programs to get into schools, they're trying to prevent pregnancies and HIV. There's no abstinence on the table. So that is a moment. If you're not talking to your kids about sex, there are other people excited. Let me end with the final person you should really be worried about. The final person talking to your kids about sex in your absence is an exciting guy. I want you to take note of. I want you to take note of this guy because this guy is special. All right. If you're not talking to your kids about sex, this guy, Google, is talking to them. And Google is crazy. All right. So a few weeks ago, like early in the year, my daughter came home with this notepad. She had written some things that people were talking about in her school. People were talking about some things about sex. I mean, my daughter came home one day and said, "Mommy, people in my class were saying this. I just wrote it down to come and show you." She didn't get the spellings correct, but I can assure you the F word was on the list, abortion was on the list, rape was on the list. What was the source? She said, well, the rape came from a book they give them, a literature book they give them to read in school. And that brings me to the place where even though we think that sex is prevalent, we still need to, as educators, watch out for age-appropriate conversation. So by the time these conversations are coming out and she's talking about what, so mommy, what is rape? I said rape is violating a woman. And so because she was not aware of what sex was in the context of intercourse, because I believe that sex education should be done in layers, right? So I told her about how the whole sex thing is really how penis goes into vagina. And she's like, so do you have sex? I said, yes, I do. I didn't want to say that's how you came, baby. I just said, yes, I do. But this is something that married people should do and all of those kinds of stuff. The next day, I went on my system and discovered that my baby had Googled on my phone. She Googled for picture of penis in vagina. Fortunately for me, Safe Search was on. Google Safe Search. And because they're pretty new to devices, they don't know how to clear history. So I called her and I said, let's talk. And I said, baby, you went to check this? She said, yeah, because like after talking to me, she thought she could Google this thing and learn some more and see what does it mean. It sounded weird to her, like, what is a penis doing in a vagina kind of thing? I really liked the idea that was her response. Because children are not supposed to be inundated with sex conversations. What do I mean? Penis, vagina, intercourse. Children are not supposed to be inundated with intercourse education. All right? They're not supposed to be watching certain things and their whole world and their imagination is all riled up for these kind of things. Because these things are not designed for children consumption. Anyway, I talked about this yesterday. So I called her and said, baby girl, Google is the worst place to go to for sex education. She said, why? But we go there for project. I said, let me tell you how information gets on Google. So you've been watching mommy doing parenting videos. She said, yes. I said, so I put up a video on parenting. Another person puts up, different people put up. So if a day I'm very upset, I can go and put up something out of how angry I am. Another person can put up something they're not sure of. I say all that Google does is when you put your question, Google just pulls up everything that different people in different parts of the world has put up. I say sometimes, in many cases, the source of information is wrong. So when it comes to sex education, we don't Google. It's been weeks. I've not seen any one sex-oriented question on Google search. Do you know why? Because I closed the learning gap. So if you're listening to me and you feel like, I don't know how to go about this, I'm not sure, you're not talking to your kids about sex. This guy called Google is dangerous because on Google, they would find out what to take to have an abortion. They can Google and find places where people can have liberal sex in their neighborhood. There's all sorts of crazy on Google. And then to make the matters worse, some of you put devices on your children's hands without having accountability-based relationship with them. So if you're not doing sex education, several people are going to do it for you. And they don't care about your own principles. They don't care about your value. Google is going to do it. Social workers will do it. Ignorant peers will do it. Relatives with sick values will do it. Neighbors will do it. And it's dangerous what the outcome is. And I promise you, people don't outgrow those outcomes. So I've been talking about sex education, addressing sex ed myths. So right now, I have a survey ongoing. I would be really honored if you can complete the survey for me. I would be really, really honored. I'm just going to paste the link in the comments. I hope I can do that from here. Okay, so I'll put up a link to the the survey in a bit. Please fill that survey for me. I'm appealing to everyone. I want to get to know how you're going about the sex ed business. So someone asked me, please, ma'am, I'm interested in the question you said your baby girl asked you recently. Mommy, how do I react when I'm angry with you and dad? What did you reply her, please? I said, number one, talk to God about it. I told her to talk to God about it. I told her that she should talk to God about it because God knows how to talk to us. I said, sometimes we can be wrong. So when you talk to God, God knows how to reach us. I said, I'll talk to God about it. Come have a conversation with us. We want to hear your side of the story. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear, I said, it's possible we don't have all the information. So when you come talk to us, we will walk through what the process is together. I said, but if you come talk to us and we don't make an adjustment, I want you to, number one, give it time. She said, what do I mean by give it time? I said, for example, if you wanted something done today and mom is saying no today, just go and sleep. When we wake up in the morning, you may feel better about the decision, or your mind would have rested enough for you to know a better way to talk to us about it. I said, but in the case that we never shift, I want you to trust that we always love you. And there are things that we're doing for you today that you may not appreciate today, but you would appreciate tomorrow. So we need you to trust us. So that's what I said. 4 steps, talk to God about it. Come and talk to us about it. Give it some time if we don't change our minds. If you give it some time and we still don't change our minds, trust us. So those were the 4 things I told her. And I can assure you she's 9 years old, but that conversation is for the future. We're going to need it a lot in the future. We're going to need it a lot. Our relationship will only grow, but I know that there are times in parenting where what you want your kids to do is not something that is convenient for them to do. So for instance, the kids are home with us, it's holiday, but we still have regulation as to when they watch TV. And sometimes by the time it's time for them to watch, maybe there's no light and we don't want to turn on the gen or something. And so maybe, or maybe you're overloading them. We say, just go and read a book. And like I like to tell them, go and do craft. Today, my daughter walked up to me and said, whenever it comes to our arts and craft, you're always very supportive. You buy your supplies and all. But you're reluctant when we need to watch. I told her, but you know why now? Mommy wants you to be a creator. I don't want you to be a consumer. I want you to be a creator. I want you to spend more time creating. So reading art and craft, they do a lot of drama and presentations. I say, yes, take the time, build your props, do your presentations. I tend to appreciate that better. All right. So I know that there will be those times where they're like, oh, mommy, I wanted to do this. I want them to also always know that everything we do is about them. It's about Coach Vivian Okoye wrote something today where she said that parenting is being trusted with the life of another person. That's actually been my perspective from the first time I held my first child. I just said, I wouldn't lose this one. And last year when I was running a campaign, I said, no more lost kids. I wouldn't lose this one to mistakes, to ignorance, and all of that. I won't wishy-washy. I won't do just anything, all right? So everything is rock solid, and my daughters can vouch that mommy is committed. They can take oath that mommy is committed to them. They know that. So let me end with this funny story. They've been trying to do bed catching for some days now, since last week. And hello, internet. So they've been trying to do bed catching for some days now, but man, they couldn't. They keep running to go and catch the birds. And once there's movement, so I've not been involved in it. And so today, one of them walked up to me in the kitchen and said, "You're not trying to help us catch these birds." And I told them, I said, that's because mommy doesn't know how to do everything. And so the things I don't know how to do, and when I don't know how to do them, I usually recommend you go to someone who knows how to do it. And that person is your daddy. Go meet him here. I promise to make out time with you guys. But let me tell you what that conversation meant for girls. I was trying to tell them they can't be jack of all trades, right? So you have to be that deliberate because there has to be an agenda to every conversation. So even if it's just a small thing, small phone call, there has to be an agenda because you're building another human being. And because of how powerful you are as a parent, you're giving them the building blocks with which they will use to build their own lives. All right. So we have to do this with every sense of seriousness because parenting is serious business. All right. So I'm going to be logging out now. Let me just read out the question. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So it's interesting because the app that I'm streaming with can't show me the names of the people making comments, only just a few people. So, oh, Auntie Toyin said doing a great job. Thank you so much, sis. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Auntie Kemi Barrow is here. Debbie is here. This is exciting. So it's now that I'm wrapping up, I'm seeing all the people that are here. Isn't it funny? All right. Yes, yes, yes. Someone is reading here that there has to be an agenda to every conversation. Yes, Kemi, yes. Because parenting is serious business. There has to be an agenda. As parents, we're politicians, all right? And especially if you want your kids to own the values you're selling to them, you have to talk about them indirectly. You have to talk about them indirectly, remind them, reassure them, and just get going. All right. So I've done this for 51 minutes. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Auntie Kemi, you know I love you, right? Thank you, Debbie. You're special. Omolola, my sweet, sweet data queen. Thank you for coming out tonight. Coach Oluwatoyin Ogunkomi, I celebrate you, ma'am. I honor you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be signing out. I hope you got value. But before I go, I'm going to be doing something exciting on YouTube next week, Tuesday. Next week, Tuesday, I'm going to be having a frank conversation. There's one thing that stops many parents from having the real sex education talk. And that's because of who they were in the past. If you're a parent that when you were young, you were wild, chances are there are voices in your head telling you that you don't qualify to expect morality from your children. So I want to have that frank conversation with parents to say, look, even if you were a prostitute as a child, you have every right to expect different from your children. But I just want to talk to you and show you how to get those building blocks going. So talk to all your friends. It's happening on my YouTube channel, Raising Girls with Irene Bangwell. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Raising Girls with Irene Bangwell. I'm going to be having that conversation. I think it's 10 a.m. or so, or 11 a.m. or so. I'm going to put up a flyer this night, but we're talking about how do I overcome my past as a child? Right? How do I break out of these judgmental voices telling me I don't qualify to tell my children to be decent? So we're going to be having that conversation next week, Tuesday on YouTube. I want to see you there. I want to see you there. So because it's on YouTube, people don't need to sign up, sign up. All they need to do is subscribe to the channel. Meet me up there. I think it should be 11 a.m. on Tuesday. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'll confirm. All right. I want to thank you for coming out once again. I want to make sure we finish this before 1 hour. Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. All right.